Hello, welcome to another edition of Money Truth Moments. Hi, Judy. How you doing this morning?
I am fabulous. How are you, Carlos?
I feel great. It's fantastic. We're in November. This is great, right? It's a beautiful day as usual out here in Southern California. And folks, we want to thank you for joining us this morning. We are here with Judy Copenbarger, and you're going to hear nothing but money, truth, and life, right? So I want to make sure that if you're joining us for the first time, we want to welcome you guys and make sure that if you're not following Judy, please do so at judycopenbarger.com. We're going to talk about her website a little bit later on in the show, but we got a really awesome show. Scary if you want to talk about taxation, so that's our subject for today. Yeah. I said the T word. Oh my gosh, right?
You did?
I did. So, Judy, I know we have a short period of time, but I want to make sure that our listeners get a lot of your wisdom when it comes to taxation. So, floor is yours. Take us through it.
All right. Well, the first thing to realize is when we say tax or taxation, a lot of people are thinking income tax, IRS,
Right.
March 15th, April 15th, right? They're thinking those kind of things. But there are so many taxes that impact us almost every day. So the first thing to remember is this is just one little slice of the pie of things that you might want to know more about. But we'll focus on taxation. And the question that we're all often asked when we're in practice like this is, how do I find a good tax person? How do I find a good person that can keep my books for my business or keep me out of trouble with the IRS? And how do I go about finding that perfect fit? And we have a 4-H method, 4-H's. So if you've been following along the last several episodes here, we've gone over what the 4-H's are. And this is the answer to how to find a perfect fit for a financial professional in your life. Maybe it's an insurance expert you need. Maybe it's a wealth manager that you need. Maybe it's an attorney to help you with your will or your estate planning or your entities in business. Well, today we're going to focus on taxation. So, how do you find the right tax preparer or tax planner for you? And usually, if you Google it or if you talk to other people, they're going to help you maybe put together a list of questions to ask the professional. And generally, the questions are going to be about what can you do for me? What do you know? Where did you go to school? What kind of experience do you have? How long have you been in practice? How many people are in your practice? Things like that. And I would say that some of the answers to those questions are going to be the same answers to the head part of this 4-H method. So it's head, heart, hands, how. And so the head is what's in their head. What do they know? Are they really good at business preparation? Are they really good at planning? Are they really good at recording? Are they really good at personal taxes? Have they been doing this long enough to really understand as the tax law changes come, how to realize where there might be an issue for you to help clients prepare for those kind of things and minimize taxes. Now, if you want to pay more tax, you don't need a good CPA. If you want to pay less tax, you need a really good one. And so some of the credentials that you might look for are just that CPA, that's a certified public accountant, CPA. You'll hear that often. And that's a person that had to go to college and they had to have a lot of training beyond college to prepare and pass 3 big fat tests. It's several years of work to be able to have the base of knowledge to do this kind of work and know when the law changes, how to track the law that changes. They also have, as a CPA, continuing education requirements. So they have to be up on the laws that are happening. And they have to know what's going on to be able to help you, because every year, not only do the forms change, but the rules change. So what you knew last year probably won't be true next year. Most of it, but not all of it. So a CPA is a person, male or female, doesn't matter. It could be a CPA firm even, or corporation. That's going to be a group of people that have a really good base of understanding. The next thing to look for is how long have they been doing this? So it's kind of like if I was going to have surgery on my knee, I wouldn't want a surgeon that had done 100 of them. I'd want a surgeon that's done 20,000 of them, right? Because it's the only knee I have. So I think it's the same thing when you're looking at your your company and your family and your the business of life, your finances, you want to make sure that you have that surgeon that has the experience. So get a CPA that's had some experience. Now, another credential you might see out there when you're looking at the head, like what do they know, is an enrolled agent. And that's going to be someone who's had special training in how to prepare tax returns. Some do business tax. Most of them are going to be doing the mom and pop personal tax returns, just ordinary, have regular income and regular outgo and not a lot of extra forms. An enrolled agent might be fine for that. You might also pay less for an enrolled agent as opposed to a CPA. But I would recommend to you that if you have any kind of a business that makes over, I don't know, $100,000, it's not like just a little like hobby kind of business, but like a significant business, you probably want a CPA over an enrolled agent just to make sure you have a better chance, a higher probability of success in having the expertise that you need for all those little distinctions that you'll need to know and to keep you out of trouble as well. So hopefully that's helpful. And that's what you can look at when it comes to an alignment of the head. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a question for you though, since you brought up CPA and you've also talked about enrolled agents. So over the course of the years, I remember, starting business and all that good stuff. You always heard about even bookkeepers trying to do your taxes, right? Oh yeah, I can do your taxes. And when you're starting out, and I think a lot of folks can relate to this, especially newer entrepreneurs, is you, like you just say, you really don't know who to really talk to. And these are some great tips that you're giving us. Can you tell us a little bit the difference between an enrolled agent and a CPA?
Yeah, it's education and board requirements. So a CPA has a much more stringent course of study and exams that have to be passed before you get that designation. And then to keep that designation active, all that continuing education needs to happen. So these are people that are like top of their game. They have to
Got
keep up on all that. So enrolled agents have different requirements. They're much less stringent. It doesn't mean that they're not just as smart or just as good. But if you're looking for, one person next to the other and you know nothing else about them and you're only looking at the head part, I would go CPA, particularly if you're dealing with a business.
Got it. Well, thank you. I'm sure that a lot of folks have that same question. I'm glad you clarified it for us too. And folks, thank you for joining us this morning. We are here talking with Judy Copenbarger. We're here every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. Money Truth Moments. Today we're discussing taxation, the big T word, right? So a little bit scary on there, and Judy's just gone. We're going through the 4-H process. And as she mentioned before, if you've been following, you know what the 4-H are, which is the head, heart, hands, and the how. So if you haven't followed us yet, please make sure you watch some of the previous episodes and you'll get to learn a little bit more about the whole process. Also, if you're not following Judy, please do so at judycopenbarger.com. Let's talk about, we're moving on to the heart piece of the taxation. So I can't wait to hear about this one because I've got it up here. Now I want to know what's going on in here. So
Yeah. Yeah. So the heart is we're looking for like-mindedness. We're looking for a professional that not only has, the knowledge and experience and they can do the work, but you kind of have that peaceful feeling when you're together, when you're doing the work together, gathering the information, taking them the proverbial box from your dining room table, right? And working on all these documents and all this minutia, all these details in your financial life. You want someone that has a like-mindedness of the heart. So they get you. They get what you're trying to do with your family, with your legacy. They understand what you're trying to do with your business. You have an alignment with your philosophy of paying taxes. Like, should you pay more? Should you pay less? Should you be very aggressive in taking expenses? Should you be very conservative and color well within the lines? And there's that whole philosophy. There's this whole spectrum of professionals that have different philosophies around these things. So you want to look for that person that is aligned with you, or you're going to have a conflict every time it's time to create a return or gather documents or, have a conversation around these things. So look for that alignment. And it could be as personal as if you love to give money away and you have an accountant that keeps saying, don't do that. Or if you love to store money up for retirement and you have an accountant that says that's too much. If you keep getting pushback with things that are very important to you, like your values, that might be evidence of a fit that's not just right for you. And it doesn't mean that you can't find someone who does have a fit, but why deal with that every year? And I've
Right.
had people share over the years, I got this accountant, or I've got this firm, and I don't like them. I don't like him. I don't like her. I don't like, and because there's some misalignment, it doesn't mean that they're not getting a good job done for them. But it's just, if it's effort, if it doesn't feel like a good fit, just find another one. And I know it's a hassle. I know it's a hassle, but I think it's worth it to find that perfect heart fit.
So Judy, we've got some viewers. I actually have someone that posted a question that they would like for you maybe just to touch on briefly. And it is, when is it, and speaking of taxation on there too, so when is it necessary to form an LLC? And what are maybe some of the pros and cons?
Oh, great question. Yeah, so any kind of that's a limited liability company, and it's going to be filed as either an S corp or a C corp. And so anytime you have an entity and it's time to form it, like you have a business and you're trying to make sure that you get the expenses that you need, you want to make sure that you're minimizing your potential for an audit, things like that. That's when you want to think about incorporating. Now, a limited liability company is a little bit beyond a corporation. So now you're adding not only tax goodies that are available to you by operating a business, but you're giving yourself limited liability. You're giving yourself protection from potential creditors or predators. And I think
True.
both of them come at you, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes Sam, Uncle Sam, I would put him in the category of a predator because some of these taxes I think are a little bit, oppressive. But when you're looking at creditors, a lot of people will use a limited liability company for business entity or, in particular, real estate to protect it. So let's say you have a business and you operate it in your manufacturing plant and you own that commercial building and you have it in an LLC. If something happens in that business, if something happens on that property, they can sue you and they can win. So beyond the insurance, popping the insurance tort liability policy, they can go after that property and say, it happened here, it's related to this business and this LLC. I want to sue this LLC. Well, what the LLC does is act as like a bomb box. It contains the implosion or the explosion inside of that entity. So if you have this commercial building, but you also own a really nice home down at Dana Point, they can't now attach the Dana Point house to settle whatever the outcome was from that initial lawsuit. So all of your other assets are protected outside. The bomb box implosion happens inside, but they can't go after other assets. And many people will have their business separated into several different LLCs, different interests of LLCs for that same protection. It puts a line between where the lawsuit happened and the potential liability could be and protects other assets from that exposure. I hope that answers your question.
No, I appreciate that. And they're telling me that they're very grateful for you taking the time to answer the questions. Which actually, folks, if you are watching, feel free to drop questions in the chat. Let us know. Send us a message. And these are some of the things that, if you have questions, Judy would be more than happy to share her wisdom with you guys on how to address some of this. And speaking of wisdom, let's talk about your website, right? So if you're not following Judy, you need to do so at judycopenbarger.com. There is a wealth of information that Judy's going to share. And also our social media platforms are also on there. So share with us about these resources.
Of course, judycopenbarger.com. Not very original, but it's a good name. But on that site, there's all kinds of great stuff for you. So there's information about every possible part of personal finance and small business. So taxation, like we're talking about today a little bit. There's legal, like legal entities like LLCs, S corps, C corps, what they are, how you use them, and when they could be advantageous for you. All that information is on there. What's the difference between a stock and a bond? What about all the different kind of IRAs and retirement plans that I might have at work available for me. All of that is handled in the online Money, Truth, and Life online mastery program. And you can access that through judycopenbarger.com. And if you don't want to take a class, if you don't want to take a course, I think you should, because it's great. And we have it set up right now where you can watch classes for free. But if you don't want to take the time to do that, just watch a quick video. We've got hundreds of videos up there for you, even on YouTube, where you can just watch a video on one particular topic. If you had the question like we just had about LLCs, when should I do it? How should I do it? I didn't answer the question of when, but I will if there's time. But all of that is in these videos that are pre-made for you and very customized to answer those questions you have. And even if you don't get exactly the answer you need to do the rest of your life, it'll give you enough information to go talk to your professionals, to go seek out a subject matter expert that can help you. And you'll know enough to know the right questions to ask. Because sometimes we don't even know where to start. I don't even know what to ask. I don't even know what I need. But it'll give you enough base education to know what you need to ask about and how you can move forward to achieve all of your family goals. So all of that is on judycopenbarger.com.
Excellent. And folks, again, it's going to cost you nothing but time, so you can learn quite a bit. And there's short little excerpts on the videos and stuff. You're going to find a lot of great information. Sometimes you have a little bit of downtime. Get on the website, find out a little bit more how this can also benefit you and your business, especially if you're a business owner as well too. So thank you again, guys, for joining us this morning. We are talking about the T word, taxation, right? So we've gone through our 4-H process. We covered two key areas, which is the head, the heart. Now let's move on to the third piece, which is the
hands.
Hands. Oh, you couldn't see my hands, but yeah, I was trying to go hands. There you go.
Yeah. So the hands is really the approach. So this would be, how does this CPA or how does this tax provider, how do they go about their work? What do they do with their hands? So what's their scope of service? Are they a business expert? Are they a personal tax return expert? Are they really good at planning for the future? Are they really good at just recording what happened in the past and trying to keep the taxes down annually? What is their niche? What is their geographical scope? Is this a big company that has firms on every coast? Is it a small mom and pop shop, or just mom, or just pop?
Correct.
And what kind of a firm is it? What kind of services could I expect? What kind of response could I expect if I have a question? Would that be by email or by Zoom? Like, would there be 500 people at a seminar if I go? Or what, can I pick up the phone and just call John and say, hey, John, I have a tax question? So all of that is going to fit into that that alignment, that perfect fit for you. What's their niche? How do they do what they do? Who supports them? Is there enough support for what I need? And how do I pay for that? Right. So all of those questions will be part of the hands, how the work actually gets done.
So Judy, so speaking of that too, somebody just sent a message also. What would you recommend? And I've heard this before too, and I don't know how this actually came about, but there's folks, obviously, we talked about specializing in the personal tax base, right? There's also folks that really specialize in corporate taxes or your company business too. Obviously it wouldn't be, I don't know if it would be ideal or not, but to have two different folks handling the two different parts of your taxes, your personal versus your business, or is it just more prudent to just have one good CPA, as you mentioned, asking all of these specific questions?
Yeah, it's a good law school answer. And the law school answer is always the same. It depends. It depends. It really does. If you are a closely held corporation, so it's just a family corporation or your own company or companies, like my husband and I have several, right? So you have your companies and you're going to K1 yourself, or you're going to have S corporations where the tax flows through to your personal return. It might make sense to have a CPA that does all of your business taxes. They happen a month before your personal. And so you get all the numbers from those, they drop right into your personal return, and then there you go. Might make sense to have all that closely held work done by one firm or one CPA. If you have several different things going on, I've got clients that have several CPA firms because they have so many different moving parts. And they've got subsidiaries in different states, business entities with different business partners around the country. So those kind of people might need to have several. But again, when you're looking at the hands, right? One of the things and the how, it's how do they coordinate together? Someone like that needs to make sure that they're subject matter experts. And here, the taxation, the CPA firms are talking to each other, coordinating their efforts, making sure that together they're maximizing all the deductions they have, all the planning vehicles that they can use, working with the attorneys, hand in hand. So you want to make sure that you have that kind of coordination. So I hope that answered the question. It really depends. If you're very simple, one CPA might be enough. If you're complex, you might need a combination of them, but make sure that part of how they work is to coordinate and collaborate together.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. And I'll make sure if you're listening, please take some notes as well. And like we mentioned before, if you have questions, please drop them in the chat. We'd love to address them, time permitting as well too. And I know that we're getting closer and closer to our end of the show, but I want to make sure that we also have time to finish off the last portion of the 4-H, which is the how. And you touched a little bit on certain things of it, but maybe if you can just wrap it up with the how as well
Yeah.
too.
Absolutely. Well, a part of that how, if you have complexity in your taxation planning, you want to make sure that that coordination is happening with your wealth manager, with your retirement experts, with your attorneys, with your spouse, with your business partners. Make sure that that communication is open. If you have great communication, planning is so much easier. And when you don't, there's a gap and it might be a very costly, either in time or money, gap. So make sure that that collaboration is there, especially in an increasingly complex kind of a plan. Now, another thing to consider when you're looking at the how is, do you have CPAs or do you have a tax preparer that is looking only to the future, or do they look only to the past? And if you can have one that does both, you're golden. So, what I mean by that is many CPAs, their role is to document what happened, put everything in a column and say, this expense went there, this income goes there. And what happened over this last year or years is all documented. It's a record of what happened. And then we can tally the tax from there. If you're in business, especially a small, closely held business that's growing and developing and you're rocking it, you really want to find a CPA that is also forward thinking. And honestly, in my experience, they are rare. Tax experts that have planning capabilities or planning propensities, like they think about the future, they're rare. But when you find one, they're golden if you're building your business. And what they're going to do is help you use the tax rules to benefit you not only this year, but in the next several years. And in a lot of areas, it's a 5-year rule to carry over all these different rules. But you have 5 years that you could benefit from something you do now. So maybe you take a hit now. Even when we're looking at IRAs, conversions and IRAs and things like that, you might pay more tax this year, but a big benefit for many years to come. And you'll have a lot of CPAs say, no, that's a bad plan. I don't even want to hear about it. La, 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 right? Because it makes our bottom line bad this year. And if you have to pay a tax this year, you might not hire me next year. Like they're thinking 1 year at a time, looking at what already happened. But when you find a CPA that naturally, or from their experience, thinks about the future and how does this fit planning wise for the future, they're golden. Hard to find, but when you find one that works, collaborates, and thinks about the planning side of things, if you have your own business, now if it's just a personal return, might not make a big difference. But if you're growing and you've got resources that are going to be continuing to provide recurring revenue or future growth, that is something really that you want to consider with the how. Now, another thing that I want to just mention is, if you're distinguishing this past and future thinking, you can ask this CPA that you're vetting or this firm that you're vetting, do you create or do you count? Create for the future or count what happened in the past. That's a big thing. Another thing is, accountants don't necessarily have backgrounds by way of education. They might have done it on their own, but to be a really good CPA, they don't have to know about law. They need to know where the laws are. They don't have to know about economics. They don't need to know about wealth planning tools. like IRAs and 401ks, they know a little bit about, what column to put them in, when money moves, where do we put it? But they don't have to have, by way of education, a breadth of knowledge in those areas. So if you find one that does have maybe a crossover with law or a crossover with personal finance, like a CFP or something like that, and you're doing those kind of things in business, that would be much to your advantage to find. And again, they're going to be rare. But when you get the planner that also understands the accounting all in one body or one small firm, it's golden. So that's something to look for if that's what's going on in your life.
I appreciate you sharing it, folks. Thank you for joining us. We are here live at Money Truth Moments, Tuesdays at 8 a.m. with our very own Judy Copenbarger sharing her wisdom with us. But hey, guess what time it is? I want you to guess what time it is. It's time for our Money Truth Challenge. All right.
It is time for a challenge. So we did a little bit of education, a little bit of thinking. We talked about the 4-H method of vetting and finding a professional that's just right for you in the area of tax today. But you always look for the head knowledge, the heart, the hands, and the how. So now I want you to take this challenge and make what you've learned today relevant for you. So 3 things, pen and paper. All right. First thing is to write down one area of taxation that could be better. If you took all these areas and you have a scale of 1 to 10 and you've got one that's maybe a 4 or a 7, what would make it a 10? So write down those areas that, you'd like to do better. Maybe it's information, maybe it's organization, maybe it's being prepared because every year you're surprised and all of a sudden you're trying to scramble to gather documents in time to not be late. What is it that you could do better to kind of take some of that pressure off of you when you're thinking about your personal and your business taxes? What would make it better? So make a list of things that you wish weren't, right? Or things that you wish were. And then number 2, write down some to-dos. What are 2 or 3 things that you could actually do? Maybe you need to gather information. Maybe you need to make some calls to, find a professional that could help you. Maybe you've been doing your own TurboTax and now you're ready to turn it over to an expert. Maybe it's time to have a conversation with a business partner or a spouse about things that you could do better. So take that big list that you've made of things that could be better, mark it down into maybe 2 or 3 things. And then number 3, write down what you're going to do right now this week before Sunday at 5:00. What's one thing that I could do to take action? One thing I can do to make progress in the area of taxation and finding the right person for me in my life. What can I do? So there you go. Make a list, pick the most important things on the list, and then do something about it. That's your challenge.
There you go, folks. You've heard it. Money Truth Challenge for this week. Make sure that you give us some feedback, see how you guys are doing. Check in with us as well. If you're just joining us, we are at the tail end of our show, but we appreciate you guys taking a look at the beginning of the show. We did talk about the T word, the T word. We don't really want to say it, right? But it is taxation. So it's a great episode. There's a lot of wisdom that was shared by Judy. Please make sure that you watch the beginning and share it out with your friends and family members and business owners that you guys know as well. And make sure that you visit Judy at judycopenbarger.com. You'll find all over social media links, but more importantly, a wealth of free resources, folks. So there you have it. Judy, any last parting words?
Yeah, I would say in the context of the T word of taxation, just keep a proper perspective. If we're talking about income taxes or estate or gift taxes, the more you give or the more you have to pay, that means that you are more successful. So as a wealth manager, as a financial, strategist, as a planner, people that have tax problems are fun to work with because they've got something to work with. It's the people that have cash flow problems that, it's a little bit, less fun. It's a little, you tend to be hopeless. It's like, well, there's nothing to work with. But if you're paying taxes, that means something good has happened right before that. So keep that perspective. It's a blessing. Now you want to minimize or mitigate those taxes, and that's possible. So keep the perspective. Have a great week.
All right, folks. join us again next Tuesday, 8 a.m. Well, we continue with Money Truth Moments and a lot of Judy Copenbarger's wisdom. So thanks, Judy. Have a great week.
You as well, Carlos.